Well, I remember when Corey went flying like a jet. It was the first time. The roof flaps, they never let. But I don't know the reason why that little contact sent the 7 airborne. But the car didn't slow, and the flips they grow. More bad luck for Corey. I can see him flying through the air tonight. The joy. I've been waiting for him to land for all my life. The joy. I can see him in the air tonight. The joy. The joy. I've been waiting for him to land for all my life. The joy, the joy.
Welcome on in to Happy Hour. We decided to go within the air tonight because someone was in the air this past weekend or past Monday at Michigan. So at this point, it doesn't feel like the race was yesterday, but the race was yesterday. And we brought in 2 Englishmen to this. So we used an Englishman song, and then we had to change things up and basically call a Hail Mary and bring in Danny Peters, who joins us to Happy Hour. Always Michael Massie, Caleb Barnes, a.k.a. Puke Combs down there. Clearly, Caleb not at the Long John Silver's tonight. All right, that's the 2 inside jokes that are covered. But Danny Peters filling in, or we had to call to the closer in the bullpen, the ace of our sleeves, and we called in Danny Peters. So Danny, thanks so much for hopping on with the last minute notice.
Well, thanks for having me. I think what you really meant to say was there was no one else available on the front stretch.
Well, Brian Nolan was. We didn't want him. Adam Cheek was. We didn't want him. So
fair, but I will just tell you a little side story about Phil Collins. So Phil Collins was not only a solo artist, but he was in a band called Genesis. Mm-hmm. And Genesis actually started at the school that I went to back in the 60s. So yeah, Genesis got their start at my school, and in the science labs that people would write into the desks, the names of the, Mike Rutherford, Tony Banks, Peter Gabriel, of course, was the first lead singer. But one last thing, Massie, love your musical tributes every week. You, my friend, are a superstar. They're amazing.
Thank you. But somebody appreciates it.
I appreciate it. That's why I give you, great nicknames like Puke Combs. I mean, come on. Marcus, we do see you were first, and then Crystal. Hey, see, Crystal likes the intro.
Thanks,
how about
Crystal.
that? Fun show lined up for you. As always, sit back, relax, crack open that cold one, unless you're driving, of course, because here at Front Stretch, we ask for responsible driving. And let's dive right into it. Danny, you brought to our attention a lot of interesting stats, and you have an article coming out for frontstretch.com, and you wanted to expand upon that for your first topic about the possibility of a first-time Cup champion in 2024.
Yeah, so as we know, we have 2 races left before the playoff begins. So we're really starting to think about who's going to be the guy that's going to win the championship. And I think if we had sat here this time last year and you had said Ryan Blaney's going to be the champion, I don't know that many people would have necessarily agreed with that. But, what I wrote about this week, or what I'm writing about this week, is I think there's 4 drivers who are in really good shape to potentially be a first to join, as Ryan Blaney was last year, and to be a first-time Cup champion. And so those 4 would be Tyler Reddick, as discussed, Christopher Bell, Denny Hamlin, because hope springs eternal for the driver number 11 from Chesterfield, Virginia, and William Byron. So those are the 4 that I'm focusing on in my article, and as potential first-time Cup champions.
So I can go first on this one, and great minds think alike, Danny. I wanted to talk about Tyler Reddick before we had to change our plans up a little bit, and how good he has been of late. I mean, He's clearly the hottest driver in the series. The fact he's on a small team, considering what 2311 is, but he's leading the Cup Series in points. And they go to a track in Michigan where you have to have like just the outright speed to win that race. And so 2311 showed that. I mean, prior to the wreck with Bubba Wallace, you could, who got caught up in Kyle Larson's mistake, you could argue Bubba Wallace was one of the three best cars there. He was pretty dominant throughout. Unfortunately, he lost points, until that moment. So I'm all in on Tyler Reddick. I picked him at the start of the year as my poll prediction that he would be the championship winner. And, we're going to do our playoff preview in 2 weeks. And I'm sitting here thinking I'm going to pick Tyler Reddick to win the Cup Series championship. I think we were talking before, most top fives. I think he has the best average finish. If he repeats that kind of trajectory coming up and maybe gets, at least 10 points in the extra playoff points, depending on where he finishes in the regular season championship. If he gets to 15 by winning the regular season title, that's 5 wins essentially. I think that's going to get him through 2 rounds, and then he's going to go to at least 2 tracks I know he's going to be really good at, and Homestead in particular. And I think we will see him in Phoenix, and he is proven. I know it was the Xfinity Series, but he's undefeated in Championship 4 races, and I would not be shocked come the end of the year that Denny Hamlin is a Cup Series champion, but it's as an owner.
Yeah, and piggybacking off of Tyler Reddick, Trey, he's been super consistent this year, and he was also good at Phoenix earlier this year. But I think the most impressive part for me, I touched on it on my article, Thinking Out Loud, on Monday evening, or it might have been published today after the late race. But he's been so consistent, and he's kind of following that dirt guy trajectory of the Kyle Larson, the Christopher Bell, that they come in and they sometimes drive in over their heads a little bit and they make mistakes. But once they're able to put together a solid, consistent season, they are immediate championship contenders week in and week out. And that's what Kyle Larson did in 2021. That's what Christopher Bell has done the past few years with finding the consistency late in the season. There's a part of me that's a little worried that maybe Tyler Reddick is peaking too early, but at the same time, it's not just been a him thing. His whole team has been flat out consistent this year. His team they dropped the ball on some occasions last year as well with some pit road penalties and mistakes. But I think the way that these playoffs work, with whether you're the regular season champion or as long as you finish higher up, you get a higher seed. And we've seen in years past that higher seed has carried guys like Martin Truex Jr., like Kevin Harvick. Even last year, it really helped William Byron, kind of helped them coast almost all the way to the round of 8. And then that's when things really turn up an extra notch. But I think Reddick's a great contender. William Byron's always a sneaky one because they take the Jimmy Johnson, Chad Knaus route of win a few races early and then do a bunch of things and mess around in the summer and then show up again in the playoffs. So we'll see if they show up again. They don't quite have the buffer they did last year. But then and then Denny Hamlin, he's always one to watch out for. But I think Christopher Bell would be the sleeper pick. He's been there the past 2 years now. He's great at Phoenix. He's great at New Hampshire. He's great at Richmond. All those tracks, and the track that you obviously have to be good at is Phoenix. So I think Christopher Bell might be my guy to watch to see who could win their first ever championship this year.
Am I allowed to interject here or not? What are the rules, Trey?
Go ahead. Yes.
Am I allowed to? I just want to check, what the rules are.
No, you have to use parliamentary. We yield your time to you, so you can go ahead.
I just want to follow up just quickly on Bell. Bell had the engine failure last year at Phoenix when he was looking strong, and sometimes you have to lose a championship to win one, and you figure that maybe with Bell that experience of what happened last year, and that sting of the defeat will really vault him on this year. Now, obviously, it's not necessarily his fault what happened, but you just wonder, sometimes you need to lose one to finally win one. And it would not surprise me to see Christopher Bell make that Final Four and get that championship for Joe Gibbs Racing.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth. I'm a big believer in you got to lose in all sports. Really, you got to lose one before you win one. And it wasn't just last year. It's 2 years in a row. Bell's been there and had something happen. The year before was when the tire changer got his finger caught in the gun and broke his face. Like, oh, ew. Like, so that's two rough ones that he's had losses. And I mean, how many times has Denny lost it? So he's more than ready to win it now. William Byron was up there in the mix last year, so you can make a good case for them. That's my only knock on Tyler Reddick is, he's great everywhere, but I feel like he does have to make it to these championship fours once and not win it once before he's going to go win
Blaney
it.
did it last year. What are you talking about? It was his first time.
Yeah, but
Larson did it his first year
I'm
too.
gonna say what everybody's not been saying. Ryan Blaney had 4 good races last year and won a championship. That's a whole
one. Still, that doesn't defeat your point of this was his first championship.
Hey, so did Chase Elliott in 2020.
Chase was a little better than that in 2020, but yeah, Harvick should have been the championship champion that year.
We know you're an old man that wants the old school way.
I think, look, hey, in 20 years from now, the way they'll do the championship is they'll take whoever's 33rd through 36th in points and have like a lottery to see who can run for the championship at Phoenix. Just because we're all participation trophy.
Well, depending on the outcome tomorrow, we could have that very lottery play out.
Daytona, yeah.
No, I'm talking about tomorrow. The Austin.
Oh yeah,
appeal. That's the lottery. Come on, Massey. Do you not know things?
Well, Trey, I just want to thank you for calling Massie the old man because I know I am X years older than Massie, so I appreciate you calling him the old man.
Danny, you're young at heart. Massey's just a crusty old man. Like he acts that way.
I'm sorry if the good old days were better when you had a more legitimate way to crown a champion, but bring it all back full circle. I think that's Reddick's biggest knock is he doesn't he's got to get in there and kind of experience this because he hasn't had like a really deep playoff run yet, and it's really new. Like the whole running up front every week thing is still kind of new to him. So I feel like that's going to catch up the playoff experience. I feel like he's peaking too soon as well.
That's true. That could be the case.
Yeah. And so other than that, I mean, he's great. One of the most talented. I'd say he's a top 5 talent in the Cup Series right now. Like right now, he's the best on a weekly basis. But what do you say, Trey?
I was going to say and we'll see what happens at Daytona. Like this heater he's on reminds me a lot of Chris Buescher's heater this point last season. Obviously, he won Richmond and Michigan, also won Daytona, and was like so hot going into the playoffs. Someone who used to be on this show may or may not have picked him to win the championship last year, and he is not here with us. Or at least I think he did pick him to win the championship, and maybe I'm buying that too much, but it's very similar to Chris Buescher. And what happened to Chris Buescher? He faded quickly from the playoffs.
Yeah.
So,
really but hey,
so that could happen too.
Buescher could get hot this year.
But I also think
he could be your first time champion for you, Danny.
But I also think the difference between Buescher and, Reddick's going to be in essentially a Joe Gibbs car every week. And I think the Joe Gibbs Toyotas, if you want to throw in 2311 as well, have clearly been the class of the field to go along with Hendrick Motorsports.
I thought what Danny said on the press availability afterwards, he said, hey, this is week 24. You don't lead the standings at week 24 on a fluke. This isn't early season and you've just had a couple of good races, whatever. This is sustained consistency week in and week out. And now you're the points leader. Now you're coming off a win. This is going to put more shine on you. And I think you're going to hear a lot about Tyler Reddick in the next few weeks. And I think that's valid. I mean, there is a case to be made. Is he peaking too soon? We can see the Ryan Blaney model win those late races and get the championship.
The Penske model.
The Penske model. Yeah, right. That's fair. But, I just think you see Reddick's got his most top 10s in his career, most top 5s with 12 races to go. And you look at his last, 7 races, 5th, 3rd, 2nd, 6th, 2nd, 3rd, 1st. Like this is a guy who is on different types of track, is sustaining that form. And, the best average finish, the most top 5s, the most top 10s in the Cup Series. Like there's every reason to suggest that consistency will continue. Now, to Massie's point, can you put it together in that final race when the pressure comes? If he makes it that far, that's a different question. But I don't think he's going anywhere in terms of this isn't a fluke run of form. This is legit form in a great car, a confident driver, and I think he's got a really, really good shot. If he makes it there, it would not surprise me at all if he won it all.
That's,
Well-
Danny, I just want to say real quick, I don't appreciate you disrespecting Austin Cindric like that. You're not going to include him in your article.
He is in the playoffs, so I mean, he theoretically could do it.
And he's a Penske guy. He could get hot.
That would be wild.
I didn't think you were going to go there and say that I was disrespecting Austin Cindric, Massie. I can see I am. What is this, like a hostile audience? This is like I'm Denny Hamlin and you're all the fans.
You're going to get a phone call from Tim Cindric this week, Denny.
Actually, I shot an ad when I worked on Verizon with Tim Cindric back in the day. So maybe he has my phone number from that time. So he'll call me and complain.
It's Roger Penske's company. He probably owns the phone company.
Right.
All right, moving to our next topic. Fun start to the show. As always, reminder, leave comments in the front stretch garage. Give us your thoughts. How about you put the driver you think could be the first-time Cup champion? Well, a guy who is already a Cup champion and maybe the best in the world at driving a race car. Michael Massie, yes. Made some bold comments this past week. Speaking of Michael Massie, it was Kyle Larson saying he is better at driving a race car than Max Verstappen is, essentially. Well, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so if you read the
what
article,
Larson came to play.
Yeah, it was Kyle McFadden wrote the article, I believe. It's a good dude. But yeah, I was not, we've heard the comparisons about like who's the best driver in the world, just kind of fun. I don't know, like water cooler talk, I guess you could say, like whether it's Larson or Verstappen. But to see Larson actually comment on it, I didn't think it was real at first. I was shocked to see that he actually said like it'd be him. Because I think back to there was a panel like many years ago of you had Richard Petty, David Pearson, and they asked them who's the best driver. Richard Petty said, "Oh, it's Pearson." David Pearson said, "Well, I can't disagree with him." So that's kind of the stance that Larson is taking here, I guess. But what do you guys think if you had to pick one, can you even compare the two?
This is
it's a little bit
topic
apples and oranges. But
for a European aristocrat like Danny Peters this is the perfect topic for that.
Oh yeah, we could leave with you, Danny. What do you think? Can you even pick one? And if so, who?
First, technically, Britain did leave the European Union, so I don't know if I still count as European. So
You're still part of the continent.
I think I still am, right? And thank you for calling me an aristocrat, but I'm the son of a teacher and a nurse. I am working class, just like Mr. Michael Massie from Richmond, Virginia. Is that where you're from? Yeah, I don't know where you're from.
So am I, if that helps.
I think Kyle Larson is the better driver because I think you've seen him do it on different types of surface and in different cars. You've seen him do it on dirt. You've seen him do it in the Indy 500. You've seen him do it in NASCAR every week. And, let's take a step back as well and let's place Max Verstappen, in the context of Formula One history. Like he has been on the hottest streak we have ever seen in Formula One, or we have seen since like the 1950s. He has won 51 of the last 80 races. That is a 63.75% win rate. I mean, that is unbelievable. He has 61 career wins, which is good for third all time behind, the 2 7-time champions, the great Michael Schumacher with 91, and Sir Lewis Hamilton with his 105 wins. But Max is already positioned to be, challenging both Schumacher and Lewis.
One of those wins is pretty tainted. I just want to point that out.
One of those wins is very tainted, and you're telling someone who mostly likes to let things go as a good lesson for life. But I am still not over that moment. I am still not over that that 2021 championship when it was, in my opinion,
It
robbed.
was coming home.
It was robbed. That was
Like
stolen.
the Euros and
Oh,
World Cup.
Don't talk about the Euros after 2 losing finals. I don't think I can take it. But you know, so I want to give Max his credit, but Max is also in, you know, I joke about this with Tom and Massie and Nolan. I mean, I feel like you put Tom Bowles in a Red Bull, you know, Formula One car, and he's gonna get.
Is it Max Verstappen on the heater or Adrian Newey who's on the heater?
Right. But I do think Verstappen is clearly an amazing driver, but I just think the variety of surfaces that you see Larson win on, for me, that has him as the better driver. And I bet if you put Verstappen in Larson in a Formula One car, I bet you he would, you know, in a decent car, obviously. I bet you he'd score well and he'd run well, you know.
I can go next. Yeah, Larson's quote was, "Not really. I know in my mind I am better than him as an all-around driver. There's no way," referring to Max, can get into a sprint car and win the Knoxville Nationals. There's no way he can win the Chili Bowl. There's no way he can go win a Cup race at Bristol. There's probably no way I can go win a Formula One race in Monaco, but I think I have a better shot. Which good to pick Monaco, because all you would need to do is be really good on one lap, and you basically could do it. There's probably no. That's what gives me ease and confidence. Like, I know I'm better than him. Maybe not in an open wheel IndyCar or Formula One car, but that's one discipline. I think I'd beat him in anything else. You can quote that. And I agree with Larson. Like Max said, Max basically deflected it. He said, honestly, I think I should first say we should not have that debate because everyone's good in their own right. And I feel like Larson's argument really didn't decredit Max Verstappen. It just like gave Larson so much credit. Like the multitude of things he's won, whether it's the Knoxville National, the Kings Royal, the Prairie Dirt Classic, the Chili Bowl Nationals, the Cup Series Championship, the Coca-Cola 600, the Southern 500, the Brickyard. I saw someone make an argument that Max could be better at endurance racing than Kyle Larson because Max does these like 24-hour iRacing streams. Well, I know this is a team thing, but Kyle Larson has won the Rolex 24 at Daytona. So does that, put to a case where this is like, I think, this is the, Mario Andretti is like the perfect example of he's the best race car driver ever because he literally got in everything and won. It's definitely better than AJ Foyt. Shout out to Mike Neff.
He's just gonna appear somewhere and start fighting us all.
I'm gonna get a text when he's listening back to this right now. But I tend to agree because like it'd be one thing, like the 2021 season for Max Verstappen was I would argue his best season as a driver because he elevated the car to such a degree that it was able to compete with Lewis Hamilton. Like you could argue Lewis Hamilton's performance this season in a worse car has been better than what Max has done.
Yeah. Hamilton had to win 3 of the last 4 races just to even get to that final race.
In 2021, to go back to that. But like Max elevated that Red Bull car, whereas I feel like Max was hitting his peak it's like Sebastian Vettel when he won 4 titles. Like Seb's peak was also the same time where Red Bull had the same car. You can say the same thing about Schumacher and Ferrari, Lewis and Mercedes. Like their peaks, and that's the weird part about F1, where if you get such an aerodynamic advantage or a car advantage, like it's clearly shown on the track. Like it's very hard to make that up compared to IndyCar, which is a spec series, and a NASCAR, which is somewhat of a spec series at this point. Like I would love to see it. Like I would love to see Max Verstappen go to Watkins Glen and run a cup car. I would love, because I honestly think he would do a really good job. I also think if you gave Kyle Larson 2 weeks to practice in an Indy car, or in a Formula One car, he probably could do a good job because look what he did with the Indy 500. He had practice and time, and he qualified 5th for it, which is insane to think about. And that might be the perfect example of he can do better. He got in an open wheel car against open wheel guys and qualified 5th for the biggest race in the world. And Like, so I think Larson's better, but I think the clear argument is those two. And it's actually fun that we got these two guys in their prime that are doing so good. Because I don't think Lewis had a contemporary, like Jimmy, I guess, was his contemporary in NASCAR, but Jimmy wasn't doing all these other races. And, go to Schumacher with Jeff Gordon was his contemporary at the time. And Gordon wasn't really going to, Tony Stewart maybe was his contemporary, but I would argue Stewart's wasn't as good at the other stuff that Larson is.
Yeah, it's such a tough thing. I mean, in my mind, I do think that Larson, all of his disciplines, does make him better.
We're also these redneck hicks from America.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing, and it's like you mentioned, Max coming over to run like a Watkins Glen race. That would be really neat. But I think it's so. I still would put Larson as better in the category, but I think this makes a great argument for why we just had the Olympics, why motorsports should be a category in the Olympics, because they're like, we see all these other athletes from around the world go and compete against these other great athletes from around the world. And I think it would be incredible to see, and there's all sorts of ways that you could lay it out. Do you drive road courses? Do you have a bunch of different divisions where it's spec cars, and then like each country, the USA engineers bring their own car, the Italians bring their own car. I don't know what all that would look like, but I feel like you have to have some sort of like a spec showdown for these two.
Well, there's the world. Is it the? This is the plot to Cars. Hey, I just want to mention this. Cars 2 is disrespected too much. I just want to point that out.
I mean, I have a 5-year-old. I've watched Cars 1, 2, and 3 about 80 billion times.
I love Cars 2.
I love Cars 2 as well. Francesco Bernoulli. I mean,
look,
who didn't think Tow Mater could be a secret agent? Come on.
We've seen Cars 1 and Cars 3 play out in real life almost. Now we just need to see Cars 2 play out in real life. But yeah, I'll put Larson as P1. I'm not sure. I was with you, Massie. I was really surprised that he like came out and said something and had to do a double take as well. I was like, no way, I got to read that article. But man, we got to get some sort of a special, like, I don't know if it'd be F1 or NASCAR. We've got to get someone to set up a race. But honestly,
isn't Race of Champions essentially this?
Yeah,
like it's just not advertised as well.
Is this still a thing?
I think our last time I remember it was Jimmy Johnson and Colton Herta, the two representatives for the United States.
But they ran it in the snow or something.
Yeah, and like Valtteri Bottas was on it, and then I think it was Seb and Mick Schumacher were representing Germany. And I think one time Carl Edwards beat Michael Schumacher in it.
Yeah, and it was like Carl Edwards' career wasn't nearly as great as.
So there you go, Carl. Transitive property. Carl Edwards beat Michael Schumacher. Michael Schumacher is better than Max Verstappen, and Kyle Larson is better than Carl Edwards. So boom, there we go. We figured it out.
But I'm really confused now.
I would hate to see
Ty Dillon's worse than all of them.
Ty Dillon's real good.
Yeah, that's what we take away from this. Now, I would hate to see Larson like take a break from the Cup Series because of everything he brings. But it would be really cool if he like qualified for enough super license points and was like, oh yeah, I'll go run in F1 for a year or two. But I don't think that would ever realistically happen. But that would also be like a really interesting thing.
So here, I will say this: Red Bull is developing a hypercar. I know Newey is still part of that. I read this the other day because he's like, there's rumors he's going to go to another team that has a son that races for them, and because the guy has a lot of money, and so I think they would do Le Mans. Like, it would make more sense. I think if Max were going to do it, I'm assuming Red Bull would do Le Mans, not the 24 hours of Daytona. Like, I think they might do both. So Larson would have to do Le Mans, which won't happen because it's in the middle of the NASCAR season.
Hey, I mean, he already skipped Charlotte.
Yeah, he could take another week off to go do that. Then we have all that waiver drama again.
Waivergate. I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah, Max never had to get a waiver.
Yeah. But I'd say that the two of them I mean, it really is an apples and oranges situation. The thing I would say, if you could get them both in a neutral car at a neutral track, then I think Kyle Larson, and like just turn them loose, I think Kyle Larson wins. If you have them, neutral car, neutral track, both of them get weeks or months of preparation, I think Max wins. I think Kyle is more adaptable. Like he's great at just jumping in something and being fast right away. Whereas Max doesn't make mistakes. He's like the closest thing to perfect. Kyle Larson, on the other hand, makes a lot of mistakes. I mean, what did we just see yesterday? He wipes
Kyle
out.
Larson will test the limit more than anyone.
Yeah, exactly. So either he'll whip up on Max or he'll wreck trying, pretty much. He makes a lot of mistakes. And then, like, the other thing is Larson isn't even perfect head-to-head like in the Cup Series, because Denny Hamlin is undefeated head-to-head against Kyle.
Well,
In
that's
times where
weird
they
to say.
finish
Technically, every time Larson wins a race, he beats Denny Hamlin, and every time Denny Hamlin, like that's kind of a dumb argument.
Denny's never finished second to him, though.
Okay, he's finished third
second
worst to him.
But so I don't know. It just feels like, yeah. I just think what on a quick notice, Larson's your guy. If you have tons and tons of prep time, I think Max is your guy. Now I know I'm sitting on the fence right there with that answer, Danny. That's kind of a PR reply, but I really believe that.
Michael Massie slowly brings in the Red Bull into the picture. All right.
Say Dr. Pepper, actually, but give us some money, Dr. Pepper.
All right. Moving to our next topic. I kind of teased this earlier. There is an appeal on Wednesday. So we talked about fair or foul, what would happen for Austin Dillon. And ultimately, he kept his win, but can't use it towards playoff eligibility. Also got docked 25 points in his spotter. Also got suspended for 3 races. So sorry, Austin Dillon, you get to deal with Brett Griffin for 3 weeks. Oh, did I say that out loud? Anyway, Caleb, the appeal is tomorrow, or if you're listening to this on Wednesday, going on some point today, you wanted to talk about it.
Yeah, so I know the decision was very controversial, but I think NASCAR has done a lot. We talked about the playoffs earlier, and Massie made a joke about we need a more legitimate, or the ways of the past were more legitimate. I think NASCAR has done a lot to legitimize the version of the playoffs by adding the playoff points and the way that the seeding works and everything. But this is kind of the last major step that it was a huge what if for such a long time about what would happen if someone just blatantly wrecked all their competition for a spot. And I mean, we've kind of seen borderline situations like it before, but this was the last kind of what if that NASCAR, I feel like, really needed to address to put the final stake in and say, hey, like this is a volatile form of championship racing. So they gave their reasoning as like they took the whole final corner, the body of work as into account. So they didn't specify whether it was the Joey incident that took away the playoff eligibility or if it was the Denny incident that took away the playoff eligibility. My worry is that some of the ambiguity, I think that's the word, I think that might open the door a little bit for Richard Childress Racing, for Austin Dillon to make a case to get this penalty overturned. I don't know. You guys, NASCAR was really upset when the Hendrick Louvers thing got shifted last year, and they've really tried to draw a harder line in the stand. But do you guys think the RCR, Austin Dillon, has a shot at getting this appeal overturned tomorrow?
Nope.
I just think if Austin uses his argument that he gave to NBC and Marty McGee, as you're talking about Trey, they will lose without a doubt. The argument is to pull up 2015 Talladega, where Kevin Harvick intentionally wrecks Trevor Bayne, the dirtiest thing I've ever done. Kevin Harvick, you can quote me on that. Kevin Harvick, you did a dirty thing that day. A dirty thing. You got away with it. Austin Dillon, what he did was dirty. He should get away with that because Kevin Harvick got away with it. Okay, let's I mean, you can point to several situations like that. I remember a situation where, like Joey Logano pits with a couple laps to go so that Ryan Blaney can get another point. Is that not the same thing as Spingate? No penalty. What? Like, why are we so inconsistent with this stuff? At this point, you've opened Pandora's
They didn't
box.
even cover up. It's been they said you got an inch. Yeah, you have an inch. Like they kind of made it like NASCAR will penalize you if you tell. Like Denny got penalized for the Ross thing because he said I wrecked him. Like
I know, but it's stupid. Like you can look at this stuff and see.
But Austin, to correct you, Massie, Austin Dillon doesn't have to. He can walk in and they can show evidence, but NASCAR has the burden of proof, and I think that's why they gave themselves so much whatever the word is.
Ambiguity.
Thank you. See,
really,
it sounds so much better out of your mouth, Danny, than mine.
His best argument would be to go in there and say, I cannot drive good enough to wreck both these guys.
I suck.
Argument. I am so bad.
He's not going to do that.
It's a miracle I didn't wreck on lap 1.
The thing is, he this whole time he has never said I did not intentionally wreck them. Like he didn't say no, I didn't. He said I got Joey out of the way and I just reacted. Like that was his quote. To me, if you have a reaction, that means you are doing a purposeful action. Like, you know, you're doing and the proof is in the data. The data says you turn left. They just didn't want to say the wreck on Hamlin was the only thing, because I still believe, and we all kind of sat there like, if he just moves Joey out of the way and wins like he did, he wins the race. Also, I bet NASCAR hoped Denny won because then they would have had a fight on pit lane.
Last year, was anything done to Corey Heim when he retaliated on Carson Hocevar in the championship race?
He got fined.
Yeah,
he got a fine. Yeah.
Okay, so if I'm Austin Dillon, I'm like, all right, give me that Corey Heim fine.
But that wasn't for the win.
Yeah, that was like a retaliation.
And that
like
was one car.
Wallace, like
it's to keep him from winning the championship.
Trey, there were like 2 laps left when he did it.
Trey, I agree with you. If it had just been the one incident on Joey, he'd be in the playoffs today. We wouldn't.
Well, he wouldn't have won the race, but yeah.
Maybe he wouldn't have won the race, but like, let's just say if it was just the one,
and he won the race, yeah.
And he won the race, yeah. But the incident to have those 2 incidents back to back so quickly, and Hamlin, that was the hardest hit in the whatever this new generation of car is called. Massie, help me out here. That's the hardest. The next gen car, thank you. But that's the hardest hit that Joe Gibbs Racing has seen, you know. So that was a really hard hit for Hamlin. But I think the argument that he has to make, and I think he only has one argument, and I just want to be clear, I do not believe there's any chance he's winning his appeal. But the argument,
Danny Peters,
the argument that he has to make, I think, is around the unprecedented nature of still having a win, but it not counting towards the playoffs, right? He still has that win, right?
But they've done that before too. Well, the last time they did it, Clements won the appeal, right?
When have they had a win counting but not counting towards the playoffs? There's never
Kevin. It was Danny missed it last year. Kevin Harvick last week. Kevin Harvick in 14 had a win but got an L1 penalty, and they said you can keep the win, but we're taking it away from you making the championship 4.
Was that? Oh, yeah.
Okay. Logano had it in 17. He won Richmond, and they called it an encumbered win, and he didn't make the playoffs that year.
My facts are bad here, are they? So I don't think
stat corner.
I don't think he has any argument whatsoever to on the appeal.
Couple notes, and this is from Bob Pockers. NASCAR and the appellant can submit appeal summaries and relevant photos, diagrams, charts, etc. Those summaries are not made public. Both sides are in the appeals room the entire time and can hear the testimony, while a witness, as designated by either side, is only in the room for his or her testimony. The appeals panel can ask questions, but witnesses are not questioned by the opposing side. Burden of proof. During an initial appeal, the burden of proof is on NASCAR. During a final appeal, the burden of proof switches to the team. Standard of proof. NASCAR uses the wording typically used in civil trials, or more likely than not, in other words, it's not beyond a reasonable doubt, like a criminal trial. Making this decision is a 2-step process. First, the panel determines if a violation occurred. Second, if the violation occurred, the panel determines whether the penalty should be modified. The panel has the option to increase or decrease the penalty. Though the appeal panel can only adjust, it cannot eliminate a portion of the penalty if it determines the rule is violated. For instance, if a penalty included points reduction, monetary fines, and suspension, all three elements of the originally assessed penalty must remain, but the amount of each element could be adjusted within the minimum and maximum penalty ranges of the violation. So if they think he violates it, he's keeping the encumbered win like penalty. It basically what that means. He could, but theoretically, they could say, you get suspended for right rearing someone. We're suspending you for Daytona. That could be way worse for him because that basically the coffin's pretty much closed, I think, on his playoff chances. But that puts the final nail in it. So we'll see.
I wish they offered a pay-per-view or something. They'd make a killing off of it tomorrow.
But let's see. All right. We'll do out of 5. 5 means he is cleared of all charges. One means the penalty stays. What do y'all think?
Why are we doing a?
Because you can show it your hand 1 through 5. I was trying to think of something creative.
It doesn't seem to make sense to me. I don't think you've thought.
Okay, do you raise your hand if you think he's going to keep the penalty? We'll keep it simple.
Yeah.
I was trying to be creative, Danny. Us Americans, we're not civilized like you Englishmen.
The best shot, honestly, the best shot he's got is how Rick Hendrick wins appeals. And it's basically you just walk in there and be like, hey, I'm Rick Hendrick. We boys, right? If Richard Childress.
They don't like
Richard Childress goes in there. They used to, though. I mean,
what he needs to do is be like, you see,
hey,
I didn't do it. No.
Yeah. Hey, you remember that? You remember Dale Earnhardt? You guys like Dale Earnhardt, right? Who'd he drive for? Hey,
what number did he
wear
drive?
a red cap with some white lettering on it and be like, hey, I know a guy. He might get elected. You should pick me through. That's a joke, people. All right.
Honestly, that's the best shot, though. The fact that Richard Childress does carry a lot of influence in the NASCAR garage.
No one got my joke? Did anyone get my joke?
I got your joke, Trey. It was not that funny. I didn't laugh at it.
Caleb did. Well,
I was laughing at Massie.
I know it was not that good. It was pretty bad. All right, let's move to our final topic. All right, this is a video demonstration, and I am. Let me pull up the right thing. All right, we go. This happened on Monday.
Case for the 7, Jeff. This will get NASCAR's attention more than perhaps anything. There'll be a lot of questions and a lot of work done after this accident.
Oh, there's
more
been so much time spent on this to prevent it from happening, but obviously more work to do.
All right, this is riding along with Corey.
That's where the camera goes out. All right. So NASCAR, and obviously the joy flip happens, and it's very serious in the moment. But Corey gets out. He's fine. He does an interview with us. He does an interview with NBC. I think he probably does one with radio as well. And Jeff Burton's like, this cannot happen. And I saw Dale Jr. say, like, you're going at high speeds. This is going to happen. So my question to y'all is flipping a race car an unintended consequence of what we want in racing, which is the highest of possible speeds, testing the limits as possible. This is the fastest track now in the Cup Series, going 200 miles per hour. This is, I think, Michigan over the last couple of years has clearly now become the fastest track in the Cup Series. Is this just going to be an unintended consequence? And NASCAR is going to make the car as safe as possible for flips, knock on wood. Like, it has clearly made a lot of improvements in the safety category. And we saw it, back-to-back races at Michigan. 2 cars flipped in basically the same spot because there's also high winds. And I'm no scientist, but I think the wind, 20 mile per hour winds, a car, going fast. That's my flipping noise.
I was going to say, is that what they sound like when they do?
We can play. I don't know, but some people yell that when they go to the loop-de-loops at roller coasters. Is it just an unintended consequence that we're going to see, or do you think we can get rid of it? Basically, is what I'm saying.
I don't know. It's an unintended consequence of being just in anything with wheels. Like it doesn't matter how fast you're going. I've seen cars get turned upside down from like little, like, I mean, not minor accidents, because if you get flipped, it's not a minor accident. But I mean, I think of the Daytona 2014, I believe, summer race. Kyle Busch got flipped on his lid, and like they were just like sliding down the banking, and a car hit him at the wrong angle, and it just flipped him over onto his roof. Now that one, obviously, he's not flying through the air at a high rate of speed, but it's part of it. I think you got to focus on just, again, making the car as safe as possible. The two, like, sure, it looks bad, but you hear about flipping over like that, it dissipates a lot of the energy versus hitting a wall head on. Those are very dangerous. Also, the lack of grass there and the backstretch helped out a lot. And the positioning of it kind of enter into turn 3 helped to get those cars back on their wheels. But like last year's Ryan Preece flip, that one was rough to see too because of the centrifugal force, circulation. That's when we saw him come back the next week with those bloodshot eyes. And that's not exactly the best look either. But I think NASCAR's done the best they can with removing the grass and everything. It's just when you have cars that go fast, or just when you have cars that have wheels and aren't glued to the ground. And I mean, these things are pretty much glued to the ground, but anytime something that's going one direction gets switched around, it's that there's a chance that any contact, anything else can disrupt it, flip it over.
Bill. Sorry.
Nobody's going to
I was just sorry. We're all stunned by your use of centrifugal, I would say. But how did you say it? Centrifugal, or how you say that?
That's my American accent.
You just slipped that into a sentence. You made it make sense. It totally worked.
I think that's what. I think that's why his eyes were
Is
red.
that Rudy Fugel's cousin or something?
I'm shocked Danny knows who Bill Nye is. That's what I want to know.
I know, right? You didn't think I'd know that.
Was he?
No, I don't think there's a way we're going to see a race where you can do everything to stop a race car flipping over. I mean, if you look at that instant, if you had freeze framed right before that instant, would you have said that car was going to flip? I think the answer is no.
Just turned and
I don't. It made a weird sound effect and then it flipped over on its lid. Right,
Chris Berman.
You know, I don't see a way that you can eliminate that, but I think NASCAR have to be applauded for the fact that you can have a wreck like that and he gets out and he's absolutely fine. I think that's amazing to see how safe these cars are, relatively speaking, to maybe how they were in the past. But I don't see a way you can stop that. I will also say that NASCAR was on a side-by-side commercial, right? Or were they on a full commercial that then went to
side by side? You just see a car just sailing.
You're like, wait, what's happening? Is they're trying to sell me like Carl's Jr. or something? You know,
hey,
like,
if this was Fox, we wouldn't even see it. We just come back with the car upside down.
But it did also kind of make me think of the Chris Buescher incident, the Coke 600, where he ended up on his roof and he was.
And that was way more of a violent flip,
like 10 minutes or something before they could finally get him like turned over. But I don't think you've ever stopped a car going airborne like that. I don't think there's anything you can do.
And Massie, before you get your point in, I would argue that in racing, like watching sprint car flips, and I know they're going at a slower speed, but they look, and maybe it's just because it's the smaller car. Again, I'm not Bill Nye the Science Guy like Caleb Barnes, but you flip, like their flips look way more violent, and they repeatedly hit the ground. Like that's, I think, how Bowen broke his back at one point. I think same thing for Tony at one point was due to a flip in a car. Like it's definitely something we tend to see in motorsports. You see it in Formula One, or you see it in IndyCar at ovals. Not as much anymore with the aero screen, but they were. I remember at Indy there were violent flips.
Yeah, and the thing is, I do think the flipping is safer than hitting the wall still, because in NASCAR, maybe not sprint cars or something, because like this year, Corey got out the car fine. He's fine, which is awesome. That's the number one thing, right? He got out the car. He's good to go. That's the most important thing. But like Eric Jones broke his back earlier this year, just hitting the wall. He didn't flip. So I don't know. It is a
Broken wrist for Kyle Busch.
Yeah. It's so like it's not the worst thing in the world to be flipping. It is scary. As long as at least he didn't get that much air. It's not like I saw the clip of Elliott Sadler on the Dale Jr. download. Do you see that where he said he was higher than the catch fence? Like that's dangerous. Yeah. So as long as we're not getting to like that level where people are people in the grandstands are at risk, I think that that's the biggest thing. And you know what? You know how Corey could have avoided flipping right there in that situation? He could have not run into the side of Noah Gragson off the corner, and then he wouldn't have flipped. We wouldn't be talking.
I will say this though: it took a while to realize he hit that car. It honestly looks like he's just trying for the pass, and the car just turns.
Yeah, it's
the angle they give us at first.
I feel like if Massie raced NASCAR, he would be last every single week.
Oh, well, he is in iRacing unless he wrecks someone like he does.
It'd be like 20 laps down, wouldn't go near
He
anyone.
is the one flipping down the backstretch.
Hey, unless Tom Bowles was out there, then I would beat one person at least.
Yeah. I had experience of racing Tom Bowles on a racetrack, and let me just say he was bad. And slow.
I lapped him.
And he talked such a good game beforehand, and then he just didn't back it up. It was embarrassing for him.
I'm in a very aggressive go-kart. I may or may not break the rules sometimes. So,
bad boy.
I will Austin Dillon you. Let's put it that way.
Trey Lyle living on the edge in the go-kart track.
That's what I do. All right. To our final topic. We actually have a fun one for you there. The front stretch draft. And ladies and gentlemen, there is a new leader in the clubhouse. And it's, of course, because of Tyler Reddick. 3,157 points. Trey Lyle went from last to first. Shout out to Zane Smith. Top 10 again. I took that pick. It's aging like wine, ladies and gentlemen. And at 3,157. Massie in second at 3,116. And Tom is at 2,922. And womp womp. Brian Nolan's still in last place. Probably going to finish in last place. We really should, when Dalton comes back for the end of this year, we really should not we should really scratch his name out. I'm going to feel bad for him when he has to come back and, live with that fantasy team that Brian gave him. All right, our bonus topic is a fun one. If you were on Twitter today, and if you were born, I think, Caleb probably doesn't know much about this game, but Backyard Baseball, the Backyard Sports franchise, has announced its return today. Danny, do you know what that is?
No idea.
Okay, well, it's basically it was a computer game, and I think it was on, I played it on the computer mainly. I think it was you could play it on the GameCube or the PlayStation, but it was mainly a computer game, and it was Backyard Baseball. And, Pablo Sanchez was the best player. It was a key part of my childhood. I'm assuming Massie's as well.
I think I played Backyard Football on the Game Boy or something. I still have a Game Boy.
I think it had a Game Boy, but it was it's an all-time nostalgia game. Let's put it that way. Now that EA College Football's out, that is now my number one nostalgia game I want to play. Let's put it that way. And so they announced its return. So the way I'm putting it this way, there's no NASCAR video game right now, or new one, I should say. iRacing is developing it. If you could pick one NASCAR video game and modernize it, basically it's the same exact feature, same vibe, everything. What game would you do? And why is it NASCAR Thunder 2003? Because clearly that's the best one.
It's I guess I could lead off. You already said what I was thinking, so I'll just go the next year, NASCAR Thunder 2004.
No, you can just agree with me,
because that one had career mode though, where you're buying engines, you're buying chassis, you're saving up money to upgrade your engine, to upgrade your chassis, stuff like that. I always thought that was kind of interesting to see how they could do that now, where you're making your team bigger. That'd be,
you sort of do it with NASCAR Heat 5. You sort of you have to buy engineers and stuff, but it's not as intrusive. I will say this:
cool to you get to a point where you can expand to a second car.
Was it 06 was NASCAR Team Control?
Yeah,
I love that game too. So that's a close second for me, because I did love always my goal would be, all right, if I'm let's say I'm Hendrick Motorsport or I'm DEI because I would use the 8 car, I would get the 8 car in the lead, and then I would switch to the 1, and I get that to second, and then I'd get the 15 to third, and then I would tell the other 2 to block me as Dale Jr., and I'd win.
So I hadn't been introduced to either of those games. I
We're
still
so
was very young, but I think the one that I would bring back was I really enjoyed NASCAR 15. That game, I don't know, just the cars in that game felt super fast, and the tracks were really fun to drive, and the way that the controls handled everything from my experience and the way that I remember. I mean, I would still play it, like. And really, after the last NASCAR Heat 4, and like there hasn't been anything good since. I would I would still play it like in college sometimes just because it was so much fun. Just to like, because some of the like more modern NASCAR games, it's a single lane, but NASCAR 15 you can run right by the fence and it feels super. I felt like Kyle Larson running out there around Homestead, but I don't know how those physics would compare with the next gen car.
Underrated NASCAR video game is NASCAR 09, which was I think the last one EA made. The only problem with it, and I to this day do not understand why they didn't do this. They's like, oh, let's not have split screen, which to me is like the dumbest mistake you could ever make in any sort of racing video game.
Yeah,
because
you had to have with your buddy.
Or you would do like sometimes, I know I would do this, like you and your friend would play, or my cousin and I would play, and one of us would win the race, and the other person would go backwards and either and try to wreck everyone.
I was gonna say for the NASCAR Thunder games, the biggest thing is I would want back would be those challenges. Like those are fun. Where it'd be like you're Jerry Nadeau leading in Atlanta, and you gotta save enough fuel, but also hold off Jeff Gordon, or like you're so and so, and the big one happens right in front of you. You gotta get through it without any damage.
You're Austin Dillon, and you have 2 guys in between you and a playoff spot.
That'd be great.
Chapeau.
Caleb, you're on a heater tonight. I just want to mention that.
He's like Tyler Reddick these last 7 races. Yeah.
So, but we're just giving you a bunch of suggestions now, Danny, for Theo. Like, culture him right in NASCAR video games.
Right. There's a photo right here of Theo at his first ever NASCAR race. So.
Just go buy him a PlayStation 2.
There you go.
Oh,
I can't see. Damn it.
What happened to him?
Please clip that. That might be our clip this week.
Hold on.
Gotta get rid of your background. There you go.
You have an invisible child.
This is Theo.
Nice.
When he was 3, going to his first NASCAR.
That was
race.
probably the same time Caleb was at his first NASCAR race, and he was also 3 years old.
Yeah.
Right. Look, boys, I've got nothing here. I'm just going to say Mario Karts. On the
That's not a bad choice. I would love like there. Oh wait, the Wii had like a
NASCAR kart racing. Yeah,
NASCAR, that was the Mario Kart version. I would be down for that. Honestly, I would be down for a Mario Kart like NASCAR. You know how they would do Sonic, and they got rid of this for this Olympics, but it was like Sonic and Mario at the Olympic Games. What if it's like Mario Kart and NASCAR?
They did have
going on the hill.
There's like I was in Walmart the other day and saw this like NASCAR Arcade Rush game for the Xbox, and I was like, I haven't heard anything about this, but I'm assuming that's probably what it's like.
Nintendo, NASCAR. We just gave you a great idea.
Caleb, do you have lights in your house? I'm just wondering.
I do, yeah. It's behind me, so the.
Guys, yeah, there we go. I was just worried. I was worried that we're going to be in the dark and maybe.
Well, we did have an episode, and we're getting off track as Josh Williams slowly went into the dark in his car. So we've been here before.
They don't have electricity.
We're not a West Coast. You live it up in the West Coast, Danny, and we're in the Eastern time zone. It's nighttime now.
It's nighttime. It's past your bedtime, is it, Trey?
No, it's past Massie's bedtime because he's so old.
He's getting angry, and he's been angry on this as well. He
is a Mr. Get Off Your Lawn man. You can tell. I mean,
I
getting angry though.
I thought Brian Timothy Dale Nolan was the angry guy on Front Stretch, but
he's just the annoying guy. He's just the annoying, inappropriate man.
No, see, I'm a chill person most of the time, and it's just a persona I'm putting on for the show. Whereas Brian Nolan is has just this rage underneath that's just bursting to come out at any second. If you say hi to him wrong, he might reply with
We can't even we can't even say his reply because we're live on YouTube.
Yeah. So I shouldn't mention what happened in the Airbnb at Phoenix last year with Massie and Nolan. I should just not mention.
Well, we know they get down in a certain kind of way. All right, that will do it for this episode of Happy Hour.
They did come back one night really late, and I was sleeping on the sofa, and they were wanting to like. I was just like, no, just go to bed, you two. Just not even
hang out.
Didn't even allow them to start their hijinks. I was just like, yep, go to bed, you two. Go to bed, kids.
We just wanted to talk to you, and you were like, get out.
Dad sent the kids to bed. That's what happened there.
Danny, I would have had the same exact reaction as you. Just
how about Brian Nolan not getting his food at Vegas? he missed his meal. It was apparently my fault that he didn't get his meal at Vegas. So,
well, he's not used to missing meals, so we get that. All right. And on that note, speaking of Brian Nolan, check out Bringing the Heat with Brian Nolan with the guest Brian Priest. Massie's interview with him from Richmond will be on the podcast as well. Caleb wrote this week. That's already out. Danny's writing this week. Massie, are you writing this week as well?
I'm not writing this week. I wrote last week on Fire.
But you're heading to Milwaukee.
Well, so the column I wrote last week is why win and year end should go away. So look that up if you want to read it. And then I'm going to the Milwaukee Mile this week and next week. So I'll be there for trucks and ARCA this weekend. IndyCar doubleheader the next weekend. So I'm just staying in Milwaukee for a week. So follow along all that stuff on our YouTube channels, Front Stretch and the Front Stretch Open Wheel.
That will do it for this episode of Happy Hour. Everyone have a good evening. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll be back next week for another fun episode. Adios.